stage for a breakup, and that the friction between himself and Netanyahu's mafia that extends into the U.S. was going to intensify after that letter, which was supposedly authored in May, because it was in June that Charlie Kirk was lobbying against a war on Iran, and that's when he began falling under attack from Laura Loomer in June. Then July, he hosts a student action summit in Florida, where Tucker Carlson calls Bill Ackman a fraud and a con man, and Jeffrey Epstein a Mossad agent. Dave Smith debates the Gaza genocide. Charlie Kirk falls under even more intense attack, this time from two of Netanyahu's top cutouts in the media, Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. Then the Influencer Summit, early August, the day after, Charlie Kirk goes on Megyn Kelly's show and complains that he has less latitude to criticize Israel than an Israeli does, and complains about stakeholders and funders, referring to people like ostensibly Bob Shillman. And then a month later, he's dead. So we obviously don't know where this would go, but I don't think they can put the genie back in the bottle here. Like, everybody knows that there was a conflict, and that's why Netanyahu is Israel's lobbyists in the U.S., and the Israeli foreign minister is committing so much money into basically buying supposedly anti-woke influencers and buying social media impressions on the right. It's because Charlie Kirk was emblematic of a larger trend of the Israeli PR collapse within the conservative grassroots.
Yeah, and I think that'd be concerning enough, everything that you just said, and there's a lot more. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to sit here for 5 hours and explain all the minutia of insanity that was going on behind the scenes, but for months on end. But, you know, if that wasn't crazy enough, and then you also have the obvious lunacy of, the round that they claim killed Charlie Kirk, and a lot of questions about cover-ups at the FBI. Candace Owens has been digging into a lot of these seemingly glaringly obvious questions. I want to ask you one question, though, that I haven't seen anyone really address in a lot of detail. Maybe you don't have an answer, but there was a FBI statement that in the early hours of the assassination that foreign intelligence assisted in the manhunt investigation. Do you have any insight into what foreign intelligence could have been assisting and how they may have assisted in the investigation?
No. I tried to track that down, and I just couldn't find anything on that. So I don't know. What was the source on that?
It was on one of those mainstream CBS or something. It was not Kash Patel, but I think it was like a deputy director or something. I initially heard it, and then I fact-checked it, double-checked it later, and turned out to be truthful. But I just thought that was weird always.
I wonder, I remember the Utah governor, who's actually kind of was like at odds with Charlie Kirk's faction of the GOP, said, we were hoping it was a foreigner who killed him, but unfortunately it was one of our own. And Benjamin Netanyahu himself blamed Islam and the radical left. So they had already kind of set their narrative. What they were wishing for was some kufiya-clad Palestinian radical doing it, which happens to be, by the way, the identity of the patsy in the 1998 Brian De Palma film Snake Eye, who kills I think, defense secretary named Charlie Kirkland in a sort of conspiracy that was hatched by someone deep within the U.S. military who wanted to cover up corrupt defense contracts. It's actually a really good film. And some potential predictive programming. But, they wanted to blame the left and enact this agenda that already seems to have been... It was like the Patriot Act was already prepared before 9/11 through various channels like the Louis Freeh Commission. And they had this whole agenda prepared to basically crack down on domestic dissent, implement more repression. And we still don't know the facts of the... We don't have the evidence that the public would need to convict Tyler Robinson in their minds. And we've learned that there is enormous amounts of discovery in this case, and the judge has put the discovery under lock and key, and the media is not allowed to access all the discovery. The thing that really set me off was the text messages, supposedly between Tyler Robinson and the furry roommate. Where is he, by the way? Or they, them, where are they? We're not hearing much from them. The text messages were like fabricated. They were,
which Tyler now allegedly, according to a source close to him, claims is true, that they were fabricated.
Yeah, and you can just read them. The language is like a 65-year-old law enforcement officer. I deposited the gun through the vehicle at the drop point, my love. Like, there's no timestamps on any of it. And I think even the New York Times acknowledged they were forensically reproduced. Remember when Kash Patel said, we had a manifesto, but it got lost, and so we forensically reproduced it? I mean, I think this may have been the manifesto, and everything is conveniently confessed in this exchange. Then when CNN reported it, they reproduced it through a graphic that made it look like you were actually viewing the physical iPhone screen, but without timestamps. So CNN altered it to make it more believable. So this already, I mean, you don't have to go that far down the rabbit hole to start asking questions. But I wasn't able to really pursue the thread of foreign intelligence assisting the investigation. If we found out somehow that Israeli intelligence had assisted, then, that would also be a red flag, because we can see what the Mossad or other wing of Israeli intelligence did in Australia, where there was a string of very mysterious arsons outside synagogues carried out, it turned out, by non-ideological criminal elements and local miscreants who were recruited online and paid cryptocurrency with instructions to carry out various acts of sabotage outside Jewish targets. Only one nation benefits from that. And then Iran was ultimately blamed.
Smradovi, šugavi, pa poznati ste po tome, ljigave, smrdljive šugave.
Fuj. ASIO, the Australian Security Organization. So Israel basically said, Iran did it. Look at Iran. Who made it? Remember all those phone calls that were sent into Jewish community centers at the beginning of Trump's first term and caused mass panic and all this anti-Semitism hysteria was directed at Trump. There was also at the same time a wave of bomb threats and phone calls to Jewish community centers in Australia. And the Australian security services found that they were coming from Israel. And it turned out it was an Israeli teenager making most of these calls. And his identity was hidden for quite a while. But now we know who he is, and only one nation benefits from that. So, again, I have no idea about foreign intelligence assisting Charlie Kirk, but anyone who's paying close attention has serious skepticism about the official story right now.
Well, I think anyone except for the people being paid minimums.
Eto ga. Mislim da je sve rečeno.